we got college football coming up later tonight, which means we got a video out today. Now, we do have two games that we're going to talk about on a Tuesday night. Sam Houston, Florida International. Wow, I clicked on the wrong thing. Florida International lost last week to UTEP, and Sam Houston lost to Western Kentucky. Sam Houston's the better team. Sam Houston, 4.5 point favorites. I'm going to be riding with Sam Houston to get the job done there. UTEP versus Louisiana Tech. UTEP with their first win of the season. Louisiana Tech lost a 3-point overtime game to New Mexico State. UTEP comes into this game 6-point underdogs. I like them to ride the momentum, to ride the wave. Give me UTEP to win. No games tomorrow to talk about, blowouts. Thursday, we got Georgia Southern versus Old Dominion. 2-point game in Old Dominion's favor at the moment. But we look at Old Dominion 3-4. Just come off of a win from Texas State. Georgia Southern just came off of a James Madison win. James Madison, what's up with that collapse? Give me Georgia Southern to win the game. Syracuse versus Pittsburgh. Syracuse started the season off hot. They continued to be hot outside of that one hiccup against Stanford. Pittsburgh undefeated at the moment. Syracuse, one of the better teams they're going to face probably. Give me Pittsburgh to win, though. I don't think they'll clear that 6-point spread, though. We don't have to talk about Louisville, Boston College. Let's go. Louisville's winning the game. Louisville's winning that game. Boise State versus UNLV. 3.5 point favorites for Boise State. I'm gonna tell you right now, for the rest of the season, unless we get to the playoffs, Boise State and Ashton Jeanty, I am riding with them all the way. UNLV, I am sorry, but I'm going with Boise State. We don't have to talk about that. That's 14 points. And then we get to Saturday. Illinois, Oregon, ranked matchup. Number 1 versus number 20. In Eugene, should be a good one. 2:30 kickoff. 21.5 point favorites for Oregon. Illinois, obviously, winning as big underdogs against Penn State, able to win against the spread there. This is another one that, yes, Oregon is a better team. I'm hoping Illinois can go in there and just look good. Obviously, I'm a fan of both of these teams, unfortunately. So this is a little bit of an internal battle, right? Oregon or Illinois. You know I'm a fan of both. I went to one. I live with the other, basically. This is tough. I hope Illinois goes in there and makes it a close game, but I hope Oregon wins. That has been my take from the get-go. I think Oregon is the team. If any of those two were to win a national championship, I could have some joy in them, and it would be Oregon that has the best chance at that. So give me Oregon to win. I'm hoping they don't cover for the sake of Illinois, but Oregon, number 1 in the country for the first time in the Dan Lanning era. Shout out to Dan Lanning. We get North Carolina versus Virginia at 11 a.m. Should be a solid little game. Virginia walking in 4-3, and North Carolina walking in 3-4. I still like North Carolina to win the game, even though they're 4-point underdogs going to Virginia. Still like North Carolina to win that. Ohio State, Nebraska. Nebraska last week got absolutely destroyed by Indiana. Ohio State, in my opinion, probably a better team than Indiana, but I don't know if Ohio State clears the 25.5 points. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think Nebraska just had a bad week. I think this week they will be a little bit more locked in coming up against Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins. I don't think they'll clear that spread. Notre Dame versus Navy. Big opportunity here for Navy. Top 24 in the country. Undefeated. I think that comes to an end, though. Notre Dame probably going to get the job done here. 12.5 point favorites for Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame to cover it, to be honest with you. It's unfortunate, but I think Navy probably finally met their match. Buffalo versus Ohio, a 6-point game, or 6-point favorites to Ohio. Buffalo 4-3, Ohio 4-3. Very similar teams. Buffalo played in another shootout, and Ohio lost to Miami, Ohio last time out. I'm riding with Buffalo to get the job done. They can score the football. Washington versus Indiana. Give me Indiana. I seen enough with Indiana last week. Indiana is all that their rank shows them to be. We're thinking, well, they really haven't played any, but they beat Nebraska bad. I think Nebraska is probably a more well-rounded team than Washington at the moment. Washington, 6.5-point underdogs coming in here, going to Indiana, flying across the country. Give me Indiana to clear that 6.5. I like Indiana to win big. I think they might actually have something going on there in Indiana. We'll see once they play one of those bigger schools, but I don't think Washington's the big school that we've been waiting for to see Indiana play. Ole Miss versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma, what happened? What happened? South Carolina throttled them. They throttled them. Ole Miss coming off a heartbreaking loss to LSU. Ole Miss wins this game, wins it big. Oklahoma has been an absolute train wreck the last few weeks, so I expect Ole Miss to get the job done, win big. 20.5 points. That's a little big for Oklahoma. I'm gonna have them cover the 20.5. Arkansas versus Mississippi State, just on the very edge of being a game we talk about. Arkansas 7-point favorites against Mississippi State. Mississippi State's really looked good the last 2 weeks, though. I know they're 1-6, but they played well against A&M. Could have beat them potentially. Played well against Georgia. Lost to both those teams only by 10. I say a combined 20 sounds bad, but they lost by 2 possessions in both games. But they had it down to the wire, kind of. So Mississippi State, I like them to beat Arkansas here. I'm going to ride with them. We don't have to talk about App State. We don't have to talk about Miami, Ohio. We do have to talk about Temple, East Carolina. 7-point favorites, East Carolina. I'll have them win it. Temple, 2-5. East Carolina, 3-4. Neither of these teams are world beaters. Minnesota versus Maryland. Or actually, Maryland versus Minnesota more accurately. Minnesota, they keep winning games late with this. I think the same kid's been getting the interceptions. Give me Minnesota to win against Maryland. 4.5-point favorites. I don't think they'll cover. I think it'll be a 3-point game there. Baylor, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has fallen off of a cliff. They have been bad. They almost beat BYU, who's been really good. Baylor blew out Texas Tech, believe it or not. So I'm going to ride with Baylor to win the game. 7-point favorites. Don't love that, but I am taking Baylor. Wake Forest versus Stanford. 3-point favorites are Wake Forest. I'm riding with Stanford. 2-5 team against Wake Forest is 3-4. Neither of these teams are that great. Give me Stanford. Home team. I'll ride with them. Rice versus UConn. Rice 2 wins and 5 losses. And UConn 4-3. UConn surprisingly has been solid this year. I'm riding with UConn. She'll get the job done. Eastern Michigan versus Akron, a 3-point game, allegedly. I tend to like Eastern Michigan in that game. So we're going to ride with them to clear the spread. BYU, UCF. BYU coming into this game is only 1.5-point favorites. That's really good odds, actually. BYU wins this game. I think they win it easily covering that spread. Against UCF, absolutely. BYU wins that game covering that spread. Toledo, Bowling Green. 2.5-point favorites for Toledo. Toledo's a 5-2 team. Bowling Green 3-4. I do think I'll ride with Toledo on that one. I think they'll cover. Missouri, Alabama. Alabama 13.5-point favorites against Missouri. Neither of these teams have had a good recent track record, right? Because Missouri had that A&M loss. Then they had a close game against Auburn. You look at Bama, 2 losses already on the year. Lost to Tennessee, lost to Vanderbilt, almost lost to South Carolina. Very tragic 3 weeks in a row. I got Missouri winning the game because Bama's last 3 weeks have been miserable. Texas Tech versus TCU, just on the outskirts of a game we talk about, just at that 7. I'm riding with TCU to win the game. Texas Tech last week lost 5-2, TCU 4-3. I'm going to go with TCU to get the job done. Colorado State versus New Mexico. 6.5-point favorites for Colorado State. 4-3 versus 3-4 New Mexico. I'm taking Colorado State to win that one. I thought they were pretty solid coming into the year. Lost the Colorado game. A lot of people kind of soured on them quickly. I'm riding with Colorado State. South Alabama, 7-point favorites, hosting Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe has actually not been horrible this year. They're 5-1, and I actually think I like them to win this game. South Alabama, I'm sorry, I'm taking Louisiana Monroe. So obviously Louisiana Monroe covers that spread. Utah versus Houston, 3.5-point favorites for Utah. I think I like that. Houston's not a team that I think's that great. Florida State versus Miami. Miami 21-point favorites against Florida State, and I think they'll beat that. Florida State has been terrible. They've been terrible. Their offense is terrible. Miami's offense is really solid. Do I think they've been bailed out a few times? Sure. But they're beating Florida State. They're beating them big. Arizona versus West Virginia. Arizona 3-point favorites. I got Arizona winning that one. Hasn't been the team we thought they were, but I think they're good enough to beat West Virginia. Utah State versus Wyoming. Wyoming coming in as a 2-point favorite. Utah State coming in 1-6. Both these teams are 1-6. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to ride with the home team, Wyoming. This should be a good game. Penn State at Wisconsin. This is the one game on Oregon's schedule that worries me the rest of the season, basically. Well, that's not true. The game that worries me the most. I am worried about the Michigan game at Ann Arbor. I am worried about Washington. This is the game that makes me a little nervous. Going to Wisconsin. Playing Wisconsin. A team that's solid. Penn State. I think they'll be fine this week. I don't know if that 6.5 spread will be. I'm riding with Penn State, but that's going to be a good game. Michigan State versus Michigan. Michigan has been terrible, but I do think they're better than Michigan State. We'll ride with Michigan to beat Michigan State. LSU versus A&M, another big game for LSU. You think they'll lose one of these? I'm going to have them lose to A&M. A&M's hosting it, 2.5-point favorites. Give me A&M. Auburn, Kentucky. Should be a solid game. Two middle-of-the-pack teams there in the SEC. I just clicked on it. Yeah, Auburn's 2-5, but 15th, and they're actually bottom of the pack. They're bottom of the pack. They're solid teams, but they're getting beat. But they're bottom of the pack in the SEC with how many SEC teams they threw in there now. But solid teams. Give me Kentucky. They're hosting it. Fresno State versus San Jose State. 4.5-point favorites for Fresno State. They're the home team. I'll ride with them. Why not? SMU versus Duke. 11.5-point favorites for SMU. I like SMU. I was a big fan of SMU. I've been telling you, I thought SMU should be ranked. SMU wins this game. I think they clear the 11.5. Kansas versus Kansas State. 10.5-point favorites for Kansas State. Love Kansas State to cover this. Kansas has been very bad all year. I think Kansas State has over-exceeded expectations. Cincinnati versus Colorado. 5.5-point favorites for Colorado. Tend to like that for Colorado. See them winning that game by at least a touchdown. Colorado's actually been relatively solid this year, 5-2. Both these teams are, but I do think Colorado's the better one. And then Hawaii versus Nevada. Nevada 2.5-point favorites. Got to travel to Hawaii though. Can they get the job done? Hawaii's not very good. I'll have Nevada win. Why not? Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.